Everywhere, GBS.
My name is Eugene Kwat, and welcome to the Insight Tonight. In an age where information is at our fingertips, staying informed is not just a choice, but it is a very important responsibility of course we have to own. Each week, we bring you expert insights on issues firsthand, on first-hand accounts and diverse perspectives that you won't find elsewhere. But of course, as we do this, we get to deliberately enter into a conversation to make you understand things in different ways, deliberately, educate you, and sometimes, of course, give you insights that will help you in making decisions. Tonight, we question a lot of things on the state of the nation. First of all, we ask ourselves, what does Kenya stand to gain in the Haiti mission? We also get to look at the political landscape, the Gachagua Ruto remarks. What does it mean? Is this another Uhuru fallout? Part two. What does all this political hullabaloos mean to our political future and the political stability of this country? We get also to get deeply to understand some of the things that are happening within the country, but of course under the state of the nation. We are going to have diverse conversation, talking on different issues, but on things that are happening and that are affecting you, our viewer. My name is Eugene Ochieng once again. 21144 is our SMS line. You get to interact with us, get to talk to us, get to have a conversation with us. And of course, we do not always do this alone. We do this through expert insights. And my expert tonight is Eugene Owade. Eugene Owade is a lawyer by profession, and of course is joining me for this great conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Owade, for joining us for this conversation on the Insight tonight.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, and I would love us to start this conversation. But now that you are a lawyer, I'm tempted to ask that Brian Mwendwa, the micros guy, has been practicing law. And as we get to hear, even from the social media, he has argued 26 cases and won all of them against lawyers and advocates who have gone through the process. What do you think about this? Is it not a threat to this noble pursuit?
Well, Eugene, thank you so much again for hosting me today. I think the Brian Mwenda issue has been addressed and largely talked about on social media and on our television. About the 26 cases, I think I'll begin with by basically saying that the question of masquerading in whichever profession it is has been there. This is not the first time, and neither is this the first case within the legal profession. We have had masqueraders before, but this does not make it right, because to be an advocate or to be a lawyer, being a lawyer takes you 4 years, or having some basic knowledge of the law. Being an advocate would mean you have 4 years in campus, you have another 2 years or 18 months at the Kenya School of Law, then you be admitted to the High Court.
So what do you think as a lawyer who has undergone all these, and yet there's a guy who has not attended a law school, not gone to KSL, and this person is winning 26 cases? What do you think as a lawyer?
Well, the question of the 26 cases, has not been verified.
Okay.
This is a matter within news domain. It's not something that can be verified.
Okay.
Nobody got the data to actually tell us which cases these are. If anything, the Brian Mwenda issue gives us a chance to really look at the quality of the people we have within the legal profession and across all other professions.
Yes.
Yeah, to somebody who has gone through the entire process, like me and many other senior advocates in this profession, this is really painful.
Okay.
It goes back to the credibility of advocates.
Okay, okay.
Because if somebody like this was walking around
Yes.
within the profession,
Yes.
and basically there are pictures showing him even with the top leadership of the Law Society of Kenya,
Yes.
it's really a time to go back and assess. Actually, we have to assess almost everybody, because the LSK has a database of all the practicing advocates in Kenya.
Okay, Wakili.
Yeah.
I think that is a conversation for another time, because actually we have even heard, and Herman Manyora said that to be a lawyer is just good English. I don't know whether that is true, but I believe that it is more than just that,
Of course.
more than English and common sense. But anyway, I want us to delve into an issue that is actually tickling Kenyans in so many ways. Of course, has caused a lot of mixed reactions. And one of them is, as we even speak about the state of the nation, is on the government of Kenya as taking part in the Haiti mission. And the big question is that what does Kenya stand to gain in the Haiti mission? Why does the president or even the government of Kenya want to involve themselves so much in the Haiti mission? And some people are even questioning, even as they're trying to do this, some parts of Kenya, like look at Sondu, they're still facing some insecurity. So what big thing does Kenya as a whole even benefit from the Haiti mission?
Well, Kwach, looking at this issue broadly, of course, there are constitutional issues within, there are political issues, there are questions of foreign policy. For Kenya, I think Kenya has really positioned itself well in terms of our global position currently. It's really good. Kenya's democracy is stable, Kenya's governance, and we've had success. Our security apparatus has had success in various countries out here. So this is not the first time, by the way, that Kenya's armed forces are going out there. But it's one of the very unique instances where now we have our police force. Of course, people argue that the normal or the usual police ratio to the number of citizens should be something close to 1 to 150, a police officer for every 450 civilians. But in Kenya, as we currently are, we have 1 police officer for 1,000 civilians. And yet, I've always argued, also in other fora, that the very first point of call is that we address our domestic issues before we delve into other issues out there. Of course, we go without going into the nitty-gritties of whether, unless we have to discuss about it, of whether this mission to Haiti is actually within the law, because there are issues that have been raised.
Okay.
Two, Kenya is currently really projecting its dominance within Africa and out there. It's actually a good thing. For us, it's a positive outlook. But we really need to look at the human aspect, the humanitarian aspect of the police officers being taken to Haiti. We've been told that Haiti has a very complex political history. It has a very complex governance history. They've had criminal gangs from way back. The criminal gangs in Haiti have actually overpowered the local police force. Looking at Kenya and where it's positioned globally from Haiti, you have the USA, which is closer to Haiti than Kenya. You have Jamaica, closer to Haiti than Kenya. You have all these other islands, which are closer. So my question has always been, why Kenya? Why specifically Kenya out of all other countries? Of course, we'll get the financial, which is very, very much important, personally to the police officers and to the country as a whole. But then to the common mwananchi in Kenya, the benefit would have been if this entire process was within the law. Does the common mwananchi understand what we need to do before we deploy people out there? Eugene, for instance, before you deploy armed police officers, or rather armed forces, because we've already seen KDF go to Congo, we've seen them go to Somalia, we've seen them go to several other countries. We even have the UK, Batuk in Kenya training our local forces. For you to do that, you need parliamentary approval. And under Article 240, Sub-Article 8 of the Constitution, we talk about the National Security Council having the authority now to make a recommendation through Parliament before any deployment is done. So The first point of call is, before the president decreed that we are now sending police officers out there, did Parliament rubber stamp it? Of course, as we so far know, that did not happen. That is why we even have a court order, temporary court order. Number two, we have the Inspector General of Police, because we are now talking about police officers. If you need to deal with police officers, the IG is an independent institution.
Okay.
It's also an independent personnel
Okay.
who must exercise independent control over the deployment of police officers. Did they give their own independent assessment of this, or green light of this entire mission?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Wakili.
Thank you.
I want us to also listen to there is Professor Kindiki,
Yes.
as he also gives his remarks on the constitutional deployment of actually these police officers to Haiti. Let's take a listen.
The legal basis for that deployment under our constitution is as follows. Article 240, paragraph 8A provides, of the Constitution of Kenya, provides that the National Security Council may, with the approval of Parliament, deploy national forces outside Kenya for regional or international peace support operations and for other support operations within the approval, subject to the approval of Parliament.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope you've heard what the professor said, actually, the CES for Interior. And actually he has mentioned what you had intimated about, and that is, there is Article 240, sub-Article 8, which says, he enumerates that provides the national, that actually the National Security Council can deploy the National Police Service, maybe outside Kenya. But now, you see, I think that this is where we have what I can call a legal conundrum, because quite clearly what you are describing is different from what he's basing his argument on. So what do you think the disparity is between what he's saying and what you really think?
The CS for Interior is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He's well versed in the law. He has experience in the law. The main problem with our public officers is that they know what the law says, but they do not want to implement it. They do not want to follow the law to the latter. The starting point, as he said, is Article 240 verse 8, sub-Article 8, sorry.
Okay.
Article 240, sub-Article 8, just to make a joke of it, says the National Security Council may.
Okay.
As we
Okay.
told may, and I love the word may.
Okay.
So the primary starting position
Yes.
is the Constitution.
Okay.
Any action by public officers in Kenya, including the President of Kenya, must be green-lighted by the Constitution.
Okay, let us take a listen to,
Yes.
to this on the due process actually the Parliament has to take on this.
It is the intention of the government of Kenya to accede to that request by the United Nations Security Council to deploy or to take part in the multinational peace support operation. Before that request is acceded to, the National Security Council, which is chaired by the President, must meet, formalize the request, and transmit a request for approval to the National Assembly.
Okay, so what do you think about that?
Well, one, have we seen the request that was sent to Parliament? So far from where I sit, no. Have we seen Parliament debate it before the President and the CS started discussing about the deployment? No. So it means, clearly from where we sit, in as much as the intention is that we maintain good foreign relations, he who loves the neighbor will be blessed under the Bible. But that intention might be good, but if you don't conform to the substance of the law, which is our constitution, then the entire process is bad. It's a null and void, as our courts have been saying. any breach or defect in process can nullify the entire process. Like in this case, Parliament has not given its approval. Is there a request that had been given to Parliament? So far, no. It means the whole procedure is wrong. We cannot deploy unless we conform with the law. And the letter of the law is very clear. No doubt about that. The president is, of course, the president is within his mandate to actually push for the country to partake in good international or foreign relations. But all such actions must be within the law. And that is what we have been arguing so far. That is why we have a case before court. They're arguing that the process, the substance is not wrong. Nobody is questioning, few people are actually questioning the substance. But the process before we get to the final product is very wrong. So we either correct the course or nullify the entire process.
Quite interesting. But I hope that maybe we can find, because there's a question actually that Kenyans are really asking themselves, is there anyone apart from Kenya who is gaining actually from this mission? Because as you have mentioned, we have USA, we have Jamaica, among other superpower nations. Their power, they've got powerful machines, and of course they can deploy their forces there, but they're not doing this. So why is Kenya doing it? Why? There's a lot of questions. Is there any ulterior motives? Maybe in a second, even as we take a very quick short break.
I think from where I sit, I might not strongly speak about whether there is an ulterior motive or not, but I believe that international relations are a complex issue. You need to look at either interest. In this case, I believe Kenya has the capacity. Kenya is also being trusted by international partners to bring about law, peace, and order in Haiti. But of course, I have my reservations about the human rights record of our local police. It's so bad even within. And two, I also believe that we have enough local problems to be handled by our police. And three, there might be alternatives. There might be other equally capable countries that can handle this issue. But let's give Kenya a chance.
Well, let me just ask you.
Yes.
What does the police stand to gain in this? Because the people who are being deployed in those places, what do they stand to gain?
At a personal level, some good salaries.
Some good salaries. So,
Yeah.
okay.
These
Only that.
peacekeeping missions,
Yes.
well, from where I sit, I know that even our armed forces, whenever they are deployed out there, they get some good perks.
Okay.
The country also gets some good security financing. Let us look at it from the general public interest rather than individual interest.
Okay.
At the end of the day, even if there's security financing, it is us to benefit.
Okay.
But we have to be involved. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are taking a very quick short break. This is the Insight to the 144 is our SMS line. You get to have a conversation with us, of course, at GBS TV Africa, at Eugene Ochieng. Quite.
Kujeni nizo points, take your pen and your notebook because you're about to get some lessons by the way.
Anga niko na dola lakini sasa kuilipa.
Ni shida.
bado kuna emergency.
Bado tu ile emergency niko.
So ushaijipata hapo.
Yeah.
The friend bado are you still friends?
Ni huyu.
Sema mama akinipigia simu aseme nimtumie do. Hata kazi naweza kopa nimtumie. Lakini man kuna umse, tambiba ndakula jaba. Ndakufanya hivi, ndakufanya hivi. Bro mami sina. Like unacheki penye mimi natoka manze. Nzapata tu na boy rada. Siniokole. Kuchunguza kitaenda kufanya ni step tu nyingine. Sasa unacheki. Ungekuwa Roma. I could smell you before I taste you. Ungekuwa fool. I could taste you before I eat you. Ungekuwa spices kala could mix you to find my flavor.
Hello.
Hello? Sikia bro, kitu ambacho ukijui ni kwamba wachawi siku hizi wanafunga tai, wanavaa suti, mnaingia nao kwenye ofisi. Wana quote paka Bible verses na wanaziweka kwenye status zao. Kwa hivyo kaa vizuri na watu wenye wana vibe nao ukiwaita marafiki. Nakata simu na mimi ndo nakupigia. Wananiita Zack Mdruzi, mtu bila watu, wajanja, wana roho mbaya kama kisu cha bucha. Heshima idum. Bwana, hii ni Art Club. Art Club tunakuletea wasanii wazuri, una vibe nao, unawapenda, unawasupport, alafu wasanii wanakaa vizuri mjini. Ready know what I'm doing. Sindio? Yeah, let's move.
Baby, mi nataka mi nawe tuendeshe ndege twende mbali. Don't you hesitate, take my hand. Ora nigwedete moyo wetu, shika mkono wangu dokamake. Look into my eyes, I love you. I feel the pressure when I look into your eyes.
Wow. Kazi fiti, man. Unaitwa nani?
Nashukuru. Naitwa Kabaru.
Kabaru. Kabaru, what do you do apart from singing?
Mimi msanii tu. Mimi msanii.
That's a good work, bro.
Manze, asante man, asante sana.
So, schedule yako iko aje on Friday?
Mimi niko sawa. What do you have for me?
So, kuna show fulani yenye mimi host inaitwa Art Club. I want to there from 8:30 mpaka 9.
Bet.
GPS TV.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Sawa sawa?
Manze.
To meet hapo.
Basa.
Don't miss.
Care and Delight program. We are at the heart of compassion as we connect the needful patients to the world of assistance. Brian required a liver and a kidney transplant worth 6 million shillings, and baby Timothy urgently needed a pacemaker worth 600,000 shillings.
Umenisapoti sana na nimefurahi sana, kwa hivyo Mungu ambariki na mtendee mema. Nitapeleka mtoto wako kwa hospitali aweke operation. Kwa hivyo Mungu ambariki sana, mtendee mema.
To all the viewers of GBS, we are very grateful for watching my son's story and the way it touched you. We are also very grateful for all the contribution that you sent. May God bless you.
Everywhere, GBS.
And welcome back on The Insight, and thank you so much for staying with us. We are going to the next part of this conversation on The Insight. But of course, we're being joined by Eric Naibei, who is also an advocate of the High Court. He's an advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much, Wakili, for joining us on this conversation. We were talking about the Haiti mission, the state of the security generally as it is. And we have been having this conversation, thinking that, and asking very pertinent, critical questions, that what does this Haiti mission has for, what does it have for Kenyans? But again, what does it have for the security organs themselves? Because we may, as Kenyans, think that this mission is not good, but maybe to them they think that this is something that is actually worth it from some stories we have had. So generally from this Haiti mission, what do you make?
Thank you very much, Eugene. I'm glad to be here. The Haiti mission, I think there are two perspectives. One is others think we should not send our security personnel there because we have a crisis in our country. The number of policemen we have, they cannot handle the work that we want them to handle in Kenya. So where do we get 1,000 policemen to send outside Kenya when the capacity is not sufficient for our nation? But looking at the other perspective,
Okay, I want us to, even as we're doing this, even as we're talking about because you are actually talking about the police generally, and you be talking about what benefits us as Kenyans. So who should we put first? Is it the Kenyans? Is it the police? Who should we put first?
Okay, thank you for it. My take is that, of course, they are there to serve Kenyans. We all pay taxes, which we use to pay security, and we need to enjoy security as Kenyans. If we are to send them because they are going to get good perks in terms of salaries and allowances, then we are considering them as individuals, not the interest of Kenyans. My take is that the public interest is, let's have our security men within our borders. If we must send out security support, then let's send the KDF, because currently we do not have a war, and the mandate of KDF is quite limited. Most of them stay in camps for long without going for any. In fact, we've never had a war between Kenya and another country. What we have is issues of terrorism, and KDF only provides support. Technically, those are not wars. We go to Somalia to support Somalia in peace missions in line with our alignment to the UN and other international organizations, because we want to create a good rapport. But that is not a war. So we have KDF. If we must send out security, maybe we consider KDF as opposed to policemen, because we have a shortage. That is my take. But what we gain from that, I think, besides the perks the officers will get, is a good image internationally, because now we are projecting ourselves as a country that is concerned with affairs of other countries, and we want to provide solutions, we want to assist. But if you dig deeper, again, I heard my brother analyzing it, and I agree with him. Why are those neighboring countries not giving security? Why is Kenya, even geographically, we are very far from them. Why Kenya? Why not the neighboring countries? What do we gain politically? What do we gain in terms of geopolitics? Is it really beneficial to us? If we are to create an impression internationally of what benefit again, will it increase funding, for the kind of funding we expect from these foreign donors, these countries, the US, etc.? Will it increase it? Why is the US itself not sending their security there? So I think my honest take is that let's have our security within our country. Let's recruit more policemen, because we need them. And if we have to give support outside Kenya, let it not be policemen.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I want us to shift the conversation to something else, and that is about the national dialogue, even as we get to the politics itself. And maybe just let me ask you, Wakili Owade, what is the state of the dialogue that we are having, the conversation on the dialogue? Because we know that the dialogue committee actually came as a result of now the rift that was between the opposition parties and, of course, the government. And this led to now setting the dialogue committees. So what happened, and where are we exactly as we speak?
Well, Coach, thank you. From where I sit, I think the National Dialogue Committee has really made fundamental progress. One, at first the debate was about whether it was actually recognized within the law, but we went past that because now there was a legal framework to guide or govern the workings of that committee. Two, there are a lot of politics behind the National Dialogue Committee's work. The politics emanates from both the Azimio side, the Kenya Kwanza side, and then common mwananchi side. So there's a lot of politics in it. As of today, I've seen on local media, I'm not aware of any document so far, but I've seen that there's a recommendation for the creation of an office of the leader of opposition and office of the prime minister. These two posts are not currently recognized under our constitution, so we would really need to find a way forward. The way forward has been very clear, as we've argued even before in this forum, that some issues require referendum, some issues require the thumbprint of the people. You have to take them back to the people. There's some proposals that could be made by the committee that have to go back to the people if they fundamentally affect the constitutional structure as it is currently. For instance, if you need to expand the executive, that is a question that has to go back to the people. If you need to interfere with the term limits of the president or any other issues, you have to go back to the people. There are policy questions that can be addressed even without going to a referendum. There are issues that would need to only be passed by parliament. They would need an act of parliament. The question of IEBC has been addressed broadly. But I appreciate that so far, where the committee is, they've received proposals from people. Most of them are actually progressive. Most of them actually address the key concerns that we've had. Issues of boundary delimitations. Like we had this person say that the Canadians, they need their constituency. So there are several issues which are actually progressive that Kenyans have had the chance to present. In as much as other sectors, like the civil society and the Law Society of Kenya, among other stakeholders, have said that they've not had a chance to participate substantively before the committee. In as much as others also question the end game of this committee. Of course, to a common mwananchi, they don't want the creation of posts. For instance, in normal political dialogue. But let us not forget that the public interest is that key questions that have been raised, like the cost of living, key governance issues like inclusivity in public service appointments, other key issues like electoral democracy. How does the IEBC work? Have elections been free, fair, and transparent? These are not questions that can wait for 2027. We need to address them now and today. So if the National Dialogue Committee way is the way, let us follow that way, Kwach.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have raised a lot of questions, but Mr. Naibei, it so happens that you are among the members that actually did some presentation.
Sure.
You made some presentation to the National Dialogue Committee.
Sure.
I would want to know maybe how it was, what you presented, because there are a lot of people who actually presented a lot of things. And being that also you're about, yes? We have had a conversation whereby certain people think that the minority, there are certain people, the minority, like the Sabaot, have been for a long time been not at the decision-making tables. And so we talk about raising of number of counties. And this will mean that even the number of governors be increased and so on and so forth. But even as we have this conversation about the increasing of counties and positions of leadership in this country, we have had those people who are opposing continuously that actually we need to decrease the number of counties that we have. We need actually to decrease the number of leaders that we have from parliament, from the high numbers that we have them to very fewer numbers in parliament. And so all these questions actually, they align themselves to answering a very important question, and that is on economy and the political stability of this country. So generally, what is the panacea to the political and economic stability of this country from where you sit? Because how can we ensure that we balance? We do not just reduce the numbers or we increase the numbers, but ensure that whatever we do is for the good of the people. What really is the panacea?
Thank you very much, Eugene. That question is quite loaded. You've raised almost all the issues in one question. I want to, first of all, appreciate the chance that the National Dialogue Committee gave Kenyans, including us. A notice was given out. Kenyans were invited to give views, to give memoranda, to submit physically and through email. And I must appreciate that dialogue committee together with the secretariat and the technical team that has been working behind it because of the job they have done. Kenyans were invited. I think over 150 or 60 something memoranda were individuals or groups were invited to give their oral presentations. But even those who are not invited for oral presentations, I think their proposals were considered and they are still being considered. This process, I want to believe, has been participatory enough because I've had concerns about people saying that it is quite closed, it is leaving out other groups. By the mere fact that the dialogue committee invited all Kenyans to present their views, I want to believe that they have ticked the box on inclusivity and public participation because they have given every Kenyan a chance to submit and to give their proposals. There were 5 issues that were under consideration, and as my brother has mentioned, I think there is now consensus on at least 2 of them, issues of those offices that we want to create, and then the issue of funds. So far, there are reports that this committee has agreed from both sides that we will have to constitutionalize CDF, the National Affirmative Action Fund, and the Senate Oversight Fund. The others are the positions of the Prime Minister and the Office of Opposition. But I'm worried that the most important ones, because those issues, these issues were framed by this joint dialogue committee. The most pressing ones that led us here, first of all, the first one was electoral justice and the issue of constitution of IEBC. If up to now, this committee has not reached a consensus on how we will reconstitute our IEBC, or rather how we want to reform our election laws, I'm worried this process may not quell the political temperatures. I'm worried the process may not actually yield the outcome that we desired, because what led us here, what led the opposition team led by Raila Odinga to start to call for mass action and demonstration, the immediate cause was the issue of IEBC and reconstitution, and then the issue of cost of living. I'm told they are yet to agree on cost of living. Those of us who got a chance to appear before the committee, we gave views on those 5 issues. We gave proposals on how we think Kenya can address issues of cost of living. And I want to believe that the views that were presented by different interest groups on which approach to take to address the issue of cost of living, there were not contradictions. There were no contradictions. Kenyans want government to take charge of the economy. And to take charge of the economy starts with stopping corruption, sealing loopholes of corruption, and then look at our tax laws and lessen the burden from the people. I want to express my hope and wish that within the remaining few days, because the committee had a mandate to return with a report within 60 days. 60 days, I think, will lapse next week, if I'm not wrong, on 16th, either 16th or 26th, I'm not sure. I want to believe that within the remaining few days, they will be able to reach a consensus on these issues, because the burning issues were cost of living and issues of elections.
Okay.
The other issues that now we got a chance to present on boundary delimitation, there are those of us who think we need more counties because of our specific issues as minority groups. We think that for us to fulfill, or rather to realize the objects of devolution under the Constitution, and specifically bringing services closer to the people and enabling Kenyans to govern themselves, because those are 2 main objects of devolution, to enable Kenyans to have self-governance and also to bring services. There is no harm in creating more counties. And our argument has been, we do not need extra financing for counties. Once we split the existing counties to create an extra 10 or even 12, we can still work within what we have been working on in our budget to ensure that these funds reach every county equitably. And the concern is just one. There are groups which have suffered historically. They have been marginalized because of the system, the way the system has been from independence. And they need to be, first of all, to govern themselves and to feel as part of Kenyans.
Okay.
So there are contrary views, of course.
Okay.
Githu Muigai gave a proposal on reduction of counties and even reduction of constituencies.
Yes.
It makes sense, but we also have to balance all these views.
Okay, thank you. But even as we discuss this, I want us actually to look at it this way. We have been talking about, when we talk about the dialogue team actually, there's something that actually was mentioned. When you talk about additional counties, I think it's Kimani Ichung'wah who said that will we continue dividing this country into chiefdoms so that maybe family can lead after doing this? When he spoke about the Canadians, I think, will we continue like dividing this country into smaller groups until everyone else, can we really actually satisfy everyone? Because after dividing this about or the who, then it will now be families, this family and that family. But I think that is a very important question, Wakili. I just want you to maybe help us enumerate on this. But even as you speak about you talk about the cost of living and the electoral democracy, those are the two very critical questions that actually led to the dialogue committee where it is, the creation of the dialogue committee. So from where you sit, are we going to have like solutions to these very two critical issues? Do you think that we are going to come up with a very, very robust way of solving these issues that have actually been a menace to Kenya historically? When you talk about cost of living and electoral democracy, are we going to really come to a conclusion? Even because we know that the taxes are continually increasing. And when we talk about electoral democracy, we are even hearing conversations around increasing the presidential term limits. So what does these conversations portend even to all these conversations and even the reality?
Maybe before he answers, I can quickly answer the issue of to what extent will we keep splitting our boundaries, etc. The simple question is, our existing boundaries, for instance, the county boundaries, they were drawn largely from previous district boundaries. These districts were enacted, or rather were established pursuant to the Provinces and Districts Act of 1992, which actually demarcated Kenya in line with how ethnic communities are. The districts looked like they were given to specific communities. In Kenya, right now we have over 43 tribes. We have 47 counties. Is it so difficult to just satisfy these 43 or 44 tribes by ensuring that at least there is an administrative unit that each community feels they are part and parcel of it? Is it too much to ask for? Because, of course, we can't go on splitting to the level of clans, etc. My solution would be, if we cannot do that, can we then consolidate Kenya? We do away with counties, do away with wards. That is, again, difficult. The other option, which is practical and which I am hoping this committee will consider as an alternative, if we have funds going to the counties, can we have laws at the national and at the county level that ensure that these funds go to every ward equitably, so that even if the governor is from a different tribe, for the case of Trans Nzoia.
Okay, Mr. Nabi.
Just a minute.
Yes.
For the case of Trans Nzoia, George Natembeya is the governor. Can we have a law that compels the county executive to ensure that the funds they receive, the revenue they collect, are equitably distributed to all wards? Because in doing so, we will ensure that we will be guaranteed of development in every region, whether or not a member of this tribe or this tribe is the governor.
Okay.
Yes.
Wadi.
Yes.
What is your take on this?
Well, just to pick up from where I left, the question of demarcating more counties or more constituencies or districts, the main issue has been the exclusionary way we have been treating our people. And most political leaders actually use it even during their campaigns. The more they exclude certain sections or certain segments of our population, the more they're highly likely to be voted back in. So as my colleague said, it is right that we at least try and address the interest of each and every particular community or each and every particular tribe, so-called. Boundary delimitations have been a thing that has been done from way back. We even had eight provinces. Were they effective? To some extent, in terms of governance, maybe yes. But in terms of actual representation of the people within those provinces, we had a problem. In terms of resource allocation, we had a problem. That is why now the Constitution 2010 had to bring in the devolved units. That is the counties. And even while having the 47 counties, this was a compromise. It's not that this is perfect. That is why we have these proposals before the dialogue committee. That is why the proposals have been even during the Building Bridges initiative, because we've realized the system we have, it is not perfect. We need to improve it. On the other hand, Kwach, what I'd like to say is that most of our leaders, and this relates to what you had asked earlier, the cost of living and the electoral democracy issue, these guys do not believe that they should act in our best interest. Our constitution says whoever wields political power or state officers exercise power in public trust. So they have to act in our best interest. That's the primary position they start with. Then whatever actions they do or they handle, do they conform with the Constitution? Questions of cost of living, as my brother said, various Kenyans from different angles, different political affiliations, have given what they think are proper ways to handle the question of cost of living. They've given their memorandum on it. So if the National Dialogue Committee can actually sit down and find a more probable way of handling this issue, because there are several issues. There's the VAT, which affects almost every basic, the prices of all basic goods. There are questions of basic necessities like unga. All these questions, I believe various Kenyans, I'm not privy to the memorandum that was submitted to the committee, but I believe various people have given different proposals. On electoral democracy, it is not the first time we've had proposals. We've had them from way back. So can we sit down and analyze what has been given? Term limits, extending the term limits, those are political diversionary things we don't need to focus on right now. Let us look at the real issues. Has IEBC undertaken its mandate effectively under Article 81 of the Constitution of Kenya? Have our elections been free, fair, transparent, credible, and can we audit them?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think these are very critical questions that maybe the National Dialogue Committee will maybe come up with answers to hopefully, to answer these issues. But even as this conversation happens at the backdrop of all this, and then we must understand that there is some politics at play, and that is the back and forth conversation between the president and even Rigathi Gachagua, the remarks. Rigathi Gachagua says that this government is for shareholders. The president says, while in Kisumu, that hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Let us hear this, the president and Rigathi Gachagua, and then maybe get to pick the conversation from there.
Na watu wa Nyanza, mimi nataka niwaeleze, mtu asiwaambie ya kwamba muko nje ya serikali. Hii serikali ni serikali ya Kenya. Nyinyi munalipa ushuru na nyinyi ni wa Kenya. Hii serikali ni serikali yenu. Nyinyi mnanielewa? Na tutahakikisha ya kwamba hakuna sehemu ya Kenya itabaguliwa kwa mambo ya maendeleo kwa misingi ya siasa.
Mambo ya barabara nimesikia Bomelia sana. kusema ya kwamba hamujapata the fair share, na mimi najua ndio custodian ya shares yenu. Mimi ndio niko hapo. Now tell these people, press, I have no apologies. I am unapologetic to demand and to insist that those who believed in William Ruto and supported him to a man have every right to benefit immensely from his government.
This is quite. I think these two. I don't know whether they've been out of context or the conversation is within the context. But actually, from how when you listen to the president, his conversation for a long time, he's not talked about the shareholding remarks. And I remember back in the days when he was asked about the shareholding remarks, he said that go ask the person who talked about that, if you can remember vividly. But now he's out saying that mtu wasiwambie. And this is how the Uhuru-Ruto conflict began. It did not seem, it first seemed as if it was jokes, but even generally from how we see even the other politicians speak, some are taking sides. They've started taking sides. Those people who actually believe that those people who are trying to get into the government to shortchange them. And these are conversations that are happening, and we may not just take them lightly. So from all these hula baloo, let me say so, what do you make of this? Is this the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning?
Interesting. I would have wanted to see the speech that Honorable Gachagua gave in Nyanza because he appeared there.
Yes.
I think there were photos, there were some funny photos people were posting as memes where the president was seen driving
he did not speak as much on this particular issue.
Yeah, I would have wanted because the problem is he has been rotating between Mount Kenya and Rift Valley. And you know, whenever he goes there, politically speaking, that is the language he has to speak. He has to tell them that you are the stakeholders, this government is yours, we are bringing this and this and this. I wish he now walks to all parts of this country and speak to Kenyans as a deputy president who is in charge of the nation, not these two regions. Because the president is being patriotic, that is my honest take. He is the symbol of national unity, and once you assume that office, you are the president of Kenya. This government, we call it GOK. It is the government of Kenya. It is not the government of Mount Kenya or the government of Rift Valley. All Kenyans pay taxes, and they deserve services, whether they supported him or not. So I think this is, as you said, this could be the beginning of some kind of rift, the way it happened with Uhuru and Ruto. It actually marks the beginning of some kind of drift, and it will be interesting to see how this will turn out towards 2027, because the DP is trying to consolidate himself and to position himself as the kingpin for Mount Kenya. And for him to do so, he must appear to fight for their interest exclusively. I don't know whether that will cost him that position from 2027 onwards, because if I were him, I would have lied low until 2027, so that now these politics of Mount Kenya, etc., you start them after securing the second term. I'm worried this thing may lead to a rift, and most probably the president may choose to take a different route in 2027.
Okay, so my another question, which is quite critical, which I believe is also the plight of other Kenyans, is the question on resources. Because when the deputy president speaks, that he was saying that I have heard that you were crying on issues to do with roads, and I know that you are shareholders in this government. So there are a lot of questions that actually will be raised from this. When you talk about issues like roads or infrastructure, I think that we have a clear infrastructure on how to come up with this budget. And we have had president, even other times, coming up with maybe nyinyi nitawapatia hii milioni, nyinyi nitawapatia hii pesa, mfanye nayo hivi, hii barabara hivi na hivi, tumetenga hivi, bilioni 7 hivi na hivi. A lot of promises that are being given by the road. So where does this money come from? All this money that people are being told that we will do this, where is this money coming from? Is it budgeted for, and how does it happen? Because it actually even takes me back to the conversation that we are having initially on now what we talked about as to having more counties whereby people can now even manage themselves when now the resources reach to the people. So if we have counties, they're given resources. Well, of course, we know that the national, the executive also have a budget. But now what happens with all these resources? How is it distributed until we have like, yes, a lot?
Yeah. So
even as you give a parting shot, kindly.
Our current laws actually envisage a very elaborate process of budget making, which involves the public giving their views on the priorities they want, and then number 2, on what resources to be allocated where.
Okay.
And this process, both at the national and county level, involves the people, it involves the cabinet, the executive, and it involves parliament.
Okay.
By the time we set aside funds for, even funds for IEBC to conduct this boundary delimitation, parliament has to approve. Even these roads, the budget process is very elaborate, and I must say that there are adequate checks and balances within the law. The money comes from the national exchequer. This is government money. This is our taxes, especially the ones that deal with roads. It is important to note that there is a fuel levy. You've seen when Kenya is constructing roads, they normally erect a poster that says, this is your fuel levy, the one that we normally pay for when we buy tokens, and all Kenyans pay for it. So for somebody to say that you have more shares in this country because you woke up very early in the morning to vote for this government, yet there is somebody who may not have voted for this government, but he is paying taxes. He's working hard to pay taxes. These taxes are the ones that we budget for, and they are the ones we use to do development, to construct roads. That is the reason why every Kenyan deserves development, whether or not they supported government.
Okay, so is it a political lie if I can say that the people who have more shareholders than others, if this is the case, that the budget has to be read in the parliament, this has to happen this way, and what is the president's influence? How is it important when the executive has maybe the influence? What the goodwill of the executive? What does it portend generally to the development?
Whereas I would not comprehensively term it as a political lie, I would really say that it's a leaf from the old political book that does not hold water under the current Constitution 2010, where we have clear budgetary procedures, we have the necessary need to have equitable allocation of revenue to whichever parts of the country. So I believe the president's speech in Kisumu is actually good optics. It's good political posturing. If you look at it, it's a great win actually for the country in him asserting his authority as a symbol of national unity in Kenya. Whereas we have seen the stark contrast between what he says and what his deputy says, I think this is a very great question for concern, because it might draw us back to what we saw between 2013 and 2017, straight into 2022. That is not a situation where we would like to go back to. The problem has always been that the powers of the deputy president have not been clearly or explicitly stated under the Constitution. And it's something that we need to really look at going forward. Because I might say at some point these guys become lazy. These guys think their role is to politic. At the end of the day, politics should ideally end once we finish with the voting. However you govern the people going forward should not be a matter of who voted for whom. Everybody should actually benefit from the state or from the government because the constitution says so. The majority have their say, but the minority should not be trampled upon just because they disagreed with the state. The other issue, Eugene, before I wind up, is that each particular government has projects that are within the priority list. For instance, the Kisumu MV Huru 2 project was one of the projects that this government actually said that they would consider it as a matter of priority going forward. So some of them have been taken from the previous administration. Some of them have been conceptualized by the current administration. But then, in as much as the political favors, the constitution mandates the state officers to ensure that each and every Kenyan benefits from the governance and proceeds of the current administration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Wakili Nabe, and of course, Owade, for the great enumeration of these issues. Of course, this is the insight where we get to learn a lot about these very critical issues that affect you one-on-one. And we talk matters current affairs, matters politics, and any other issues that are very, very important to you as we make deliberate conversations to enlighten, to educate you, to make a proper judgment on various issues that affect you. Otherwise, it has been a great night, great conversation. Thank you so much, my guest, and thank you so much for staying with us. To the Wonderful Voice, our SMS line. My name is Eugene Ochieng-Kwach, and this is The Insight, only at GBS TV Africa, coming to you every Friday from 7 p.m. Good night.